Hello and welcome to FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today I have Linus Axelsson. So, Linus, I just want to thank you for taking the time to come onto the podcast today.
Oh yeah, all good. So fun to be here actually.
Yeah, so we were literally just about 30 seconds ago talking about your name because, I was pronouncing it Linus Axelsson and I asked you how you pronounce it. You said Linus. So, where are you from originally?
Yeah, I'm Swedish, and the name I don't know where that originally comes from. I think my parents said it was like Greek or something originally. I really don't. I really don't know though.
Yeah, because you've got I mean, I guess it's Linus Torvalds, who's the
Right.
Finnish developer who made was it Linux. So obviously, I've always called him Linus, but obviously, I've never spoken to him or met him, so I've never. I doubt he would correct it anyway, but I've never had the opportunity to ask him. So Linus. So I'm wondering now how the correct pronunciation of Linux is, because I've heard Linux.
Oh,
Would it
that's a
be
good.
Linux? Well, how do you pronounce it actually?
That's a good question. I do say Linux, but that's maybe out of habit of my own name, I guess.
Yeah,
But yeah, you'd have to ask him, I suppose.
yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
there's the other guy. There's Tech Tips.
yeah, Linus Tech Tips. But I mean, I'm pretty sure he pronounces it Linus, doesn't
I
he?
think he does, yeah. But
Yeah,
that's
but
also maybe
he's
an American influence,
yeah,
you
'cause
know?
he's what, a Canadian or American,
Right,
so
right.
he's not from a different part of the world. Actually, I wonder. I mean, I don't know what his family history is if he's been in America, for generations, or if he was from somewhere else. Because he just looks American or Canadian, wherever he's from. He doesn't look like he should be, Swedish or Finnish or anything.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the parents just like the name. You do get that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you worked at Paradox. What
Hmm.
was that experience like, and which projects did you work on? Because Paradox does a fair bit of, development.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I worked on a lot of games at Paradox actually. Uh, my role is like technical artist. It's something that Paradox doesn't have a lot of. So I had the chance to, like, the opportunity to work on a lot of different projects. Um, let's see. I started with Tank Command, which was like a mobile game that we did a few years ago, and then after that, it was Age of Wonders: Planetfall, which is another like a strategy game, and there was Imperator Rome, Victoria 3, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, which is currently, I guess, in development, or you know in indefinite development. I suppose I really don't know the status of that game. It was really fun to work on it though. And then most recently Crusader Kings 3, which was like kind of the main game that I worked on.
Okay, out of all the ones you worked on at Paradox, which was your favorite to work on, and which was your favorite to play? I mean, do you play any of them?
I do. I'm not the biggest like Paradox fan, the super fan. They have a very intense fan base, and I respect it a lot. And the games are really well made. It's just I'm a little bit more casual leaning, so I would go more towards something like Sid Meier's Civilization, or something along those lines, personally. But I did really like the depth of those games, though. I really enjoyed working on Bloodlines 2. Like I said, it was more like a modern 3D game, not really a strategy game. But Crusader Kings 3, or CK3 as we call it, it's really deep, and like there's a lot of fun stuff going on in there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And why did you leave Paradox to become a freelancer?
I think I've worked there for a few years, and I mean this is a really recent development, but I worked there for a few years, and I just felt like, I remember the time when I was just starting and learning and stuff, and I was doing like solo development at home, and I was doing projects, and I was doing this, and I was doing that, I was doing game jams, I was like intensely working at all times, and it gave me so much energy, and I just remember that. And then, working in the industry for a few years, you get into this this, I don't know, this mind state that it's not really, my game. It's not really my project anymore. It's someone
Mm,
else's, and that kind of thing. And in the long run, the reason I started in this industry is for creative reasons. I wanted to make my own stuff. I wanted to create stuff and make sure that I put my mark on stuff. So that's what I'm kind of looking for. And as far as the freelancing goes, that's a way to use what I've learned to make some money. But really, like, I'm trying to look at making my own projects as well, like game projects and stuff like that.
yeah, and because you spoke about doing your own projects, beforehand, did you release any of those projects, like on mobile or on Steam or anywhere?
I did, but this was, I mean, I released something on like itch.io, which is like the
Yeah.
indie developer kind of website that you release stuff on. Um, it's not really something that it wasn't really polished or anything. I was still in like super early in my career and everything, so I really wasn't like, I didn't have full control of what I was doing. I was just improvising. But I think, if I were to make another project at some point, I would probably aim for Steam, just to make it kind of a little bit more official, and you get like more clear and concise feedback, and there's avenues to update really easily and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. The thing with itch, it doesn't. I mean, it's a great way to put stuff out there, platform like itch, but something like Steam, if you're going the more desktop route, or obviously you got the App Store and the Google Play Store, the process of it in terms, like you said, of updating it, in terms of just reaching out to users, like especially when you got stuff like notifications on your phone, automatic updates. Somebody could play a game on itch and they never go back to it. Whereas somebody could download a game on mobile, play it a few times, forget that they've got it, and get a notification, and the notification
Right.
will be like new update, this and this is released. You get this for free, and I might be like, what, I'll check it out again. And obviously, similar thing with Steam as well. So yeah, definitely those platforms, the sort of reach and what you can do with it. But again, they're more equipped for that.
Yeah.
So, what did you make those games yourself, or was it with other people? And what tools did you use?
Yeah, for the most part, I did stuff on my own. Obviously, in terms of my like working at Paradox and stuff, there's a team of like 70 people or something, but in terms of like before that, when I did my solo dev stuff, it was mostly me. Actually, I was living with a roommate who also was like a solo developer at the time, and we were kind of bouncing ideas back and forth, just like I would see him in the kitchen or something, and I would cook up a meal or something. He'd be like, "Hey, have you seen what I did lately?" And then I would show the latest development, and he would show like whatever he did, and then like I would quickly wrap up the cooking. I'd be like, "Fuck, I gotta get back to my room." Actually, sorry, can I swear on this?
It's fine.
All right, cool.
Anything goes on this podcast.
All right. Yeah, no, but I like the spirit was just I wouldn't say competition, but more like a friendly sparring or something like that. Where you would kind of you know encourage each other to do more, like develop
Excited to
more.
show you're I know what you mean. You're excited to show something off, less to put them down, more to be like, oh, I've done this, and it's a motivational thing to be like, tomorrow I'm going to see him again. I wouldn't mind showing him this new feature.
Right.
Whereas when you're just doing it yourself, not showing it with anyone, no one's taking it in, because obviously that's the other thing. That other individual you're talking about clearly has an interest in it. He's doing his own stuff. If he had no interest, never asked, didn't care when you showed him, and wasn't doing his own stuff, the motivation to do it, to kind of show it off to him, and then him showing what he's working on, wouldn't be there. So yeah, obviously having that person, but then having the reciprocation from that individual as well is a huge thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I mean, he went on to like develop his own game, and he's still doing it. His game is called Starfetchers. It's the first thing is on Steam. Anybody should check it out because it's a it's a really cool game. But yeah, you should look out for more from him too.
Yeah, I mean, I've literally just done a quick Google of it. Is it like a side-scrolling game? It looks like.
Yeah, it's like a 2D side-scrolling game with like focus on some fun combat and narrative and stuff like that. You know.
Oh, yeah, it definitely looks interesting. Yeah, the recent reviews of it saying very positive. The on the all reviews is overwhelmingly positive, so it's seems to be very. I don't know if this is the person's name or like the name on the platform. Saval stick. I mean, I'm butchering the
that's,
Slavosticon.
that's close enough. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Swavel stick gun. Yeah,
Slavosticon.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, there we go. So your Starfetchers, anyone that's watching, check that out. Yeah, it's free to play and you can actually play right now. And he's doing something for the Starfetchers episode 1, which is coming soon, apparently.
Word.
Yeah. I mean, did you ever talk to Slavosticon about working together? Like, what was he? Because you're a technical artist by trade.
Right.
What was actually before we move on to that? What does a technical artist do? How does that differ to an artist? Per
Oh,
se.
that's such a good question. I still don't know. We we improvise every day, kind of. It's kind of like no, programmers they love bits and bytes and they love
Mhm.
zeros and ones. They love logic and stuff like that. And then you have artists on the other side, and they express themselves in terms of shape and color and things like that. And they oftentimes they can have a clash in their discussions or teamwork or stuff like that, where they don't really speak the same language, but they need to achieve the same goal, if that makes sense, to make this one game that they're making. And that's where the technical artist comes in, someone who has a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B.
Okay. So talking about that, because obviously you're an artist by trade, but I noticed on your LinkedIn page it was mentioned that you have like some skill within OpenGL. Like how much OpenGL do you know, and how have you used that in your career?
Yeah, so that's pretty much how I started. Was doing like as a student. We did some graphics programming and stuff like that, and it
Mm.
was OpenGL and it was DirectX, and those were the two main things that were going on. And then after that, you kind of after a few years, more of the engines, like the standalone engines, really took over. So it was at first it was like, yeah, Unity was there, but it was like kind of wasn't as prominent as it is now. And the same with Unreal. Like Unreal existed, but it wasn't really like that accessible. It was before they kind of launched the whole Epic Store and all that stuff.
Yeah, when it used to be UDK, or when they used to bundle Unreal, like when you would buy Unreal Tournament and you would get Unreal
Right.
Engine in the folder as well.
Exactly.
So
So
they,
so yeah, it wasn't like super prominent. So it was kind of useful to have that background where some of the like more closer to the hardware type stuff that actually comes in handy at a workplace later on. But nowadays it's like it's perfectly acceptable to just learn one of the engines and go with that.
hmm.
And that's all right. That's good. And it's actually good that the tools have come such a far like such a long way to where you could check out tutorials all day and then you can make something at the end of the day, even though if you're just starting out.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, the thing with it, and like back in the day, you either had like two types of engines. Ones that were so technical that the average person just couldn't do much with it, and you basically had to be a good programmer anyway. And it was almost like you might as well just use OpenGL or DirectX directly yourself, and do it. Or you had engines that were so high level you couldn't do much with them. There was a bit of drag and drop in, and they might have some sort
Yeah,
of basic scripting, but you couldn't really do much with it. But with Unreal Engine and obviously Unity as well, and some of the other ones, you can do so much with it. I mean, you just need to look at the games that have been made outside of Epic with the with the Unreal Engine, and the amount of plugins that are available, especially for UE4, but UE5 are getting updated for, the plugins are getting updated for version 5 as well. And all those plugins, and you have a method pretty, I won't say easy, but easy enough if you're committed enough to make the plugins yourself. So if there's some sort of ad framework, for example, that doesn't quite work, but let's say it's just a C++ framework, you could, theoretically, get that working. So yeah, the engines have come a long way. So going off that, what's your preferred route if because you are going to do your own projects now? Game engine like Unity 3D or a custom process using OpenGL? What's your opinion in today's world and for now?
I mean, if you're if you're just making a game alone or with 5 to 10 or 15 even people, I would go Unreal or Unity for sure. If you are making a really specialized thing, so something that Paradox has a need for a custom game engine because they're doing like a bunch of simulations and stuff that need to happen, et cetera, et cetera. Then maybe you should look at your own game engine. But really, there's no need to go that route if you're if you're just making a regular type game, a 3D game or a 2D game, you can get by like pretty good on the engines that are out.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the problem I had with Unreal and Unity and some of these ones, they were a bit overkill. I found, especially Unreal, for some simpler projects, and especially if you wanted to go down the 2D route. Unity less so, but especially Unreal, they have 2D features in there and options to make a 2D game. But it felt like it was so overcomplicated the engine was to do something in 2D, you would almost be better off using a dedicated 2D engine. Like, what's your opinion on that? And do you have any experience with 2D engines and games, and what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really spent a lot of time on 2D actually. It's probably one of my least knowledgeable areas. I'm more of a 3D person actually. And the reason for that is because of kind of my role is more of a 3D role. I like to get in there with shaders and stuff like that. But when it comes to like 2D, yeah, just from instinct, I would go with Unity. But yeah, I'm sure Unreal has come a long way on that stuff. I haven't really looked into it too super deep.
Hmm. And like, do you enjoy OpenGL? How do you find it? Because OpenGL is pretty hardcore if you're just doing raw OpenGL just to get like a triangle drawn. I remember at uni because sound like we did a pretty similar degree because I did computer game programming, and as part of that, I learned OpenGL and
Oh yeah,
.NET. Unfortunately, at uni they only taught, which I don't know why, considering at that time the modern OpenGL was out and it was pretty refined. But they taught us the fixed pipeline system, which
oh wow,
yeah, and that was 2010 to 2014. So it was, like I said, it wasn't that long ago that they should have taught us the modern that they should have taught us the fixed one. I feel like the lecturers probably didn't really know much about
right,
the other ones per se, and because the fixed pipeline, it is a lot easier to start getting stuff on the screen and a few basic stuff. I feel like that's the reason why they jumped into it. It didn't make sense for them to do that and then switch to something else. It should have just been the modern one from the start. But like, what's your experience of OpenGL like? How do you
oh
find it?
yeah. No, I mean I agree that's crazy that they would do. Is that computer science or
The degree, you mean?
yeah?
Computer games programming. So that's even worse. The fact that it was a actual
Right.
games programming degree.
That is crazy. That's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that I mean, obviously to get by in today's anywhere, you need to be able to work with shaders and stuff like that. And the old fixed stuff where you would just like draw a shape in code, like that doesn't fly nowadays. You can't do that. And I'm amazed that there are professors. Well, I mean, 2010 to 2014, I guess the development like sphere wasn't as big as it is now. Now it's a lot more like commonplace to actually for people to do that kind of to go those educations and all that stuff. But
But it was
yeah,
still advanced enough that modern should have been taught. Because one of the things I do, I make videos on YouTube, and some of the stuff I've done is programming. That's how I started with programming videos on YouTube, and some of my most popular programming videos were OpenGL. And initially, I
Yeah.
just was doing the stuff that I did at uni, which was the fixed pipeline stuff, and instantaneously, and that's like, early on, not long after uni, instantly I'm getting messages, this is old, we want videos on the new stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably how I, got introduced to it in a way. That and just a bit of just regular Googling of OpenGL, and then coming across the other stuff, which didn't make sense to me because I had done the fixed pipeline stuff. So, but I saw this, I see this a lot in academia in general. There's so much stuff that's taught that's out of date,
Yeah.
and it's just like something like maths is fine. You can teach 1,000-year-old theorem, and it will be as applicable then as it is today. Maths doesn't won't really change so much within a 10 to 20 year period. That if you
Yeah.
learned maths 20 years ago and you was great at it and you still know it today, you'll still be fine. Okay, you
Yeah.
might use computers a bit, you might leverage a bit of technology, but the actual, the maths algorithms in the textbooks are the same. Whereas, the stuff they were teaching us was, and another thing, we learned C in the first year, and then in
Mhm.
the second and third year we did C++, and it was not some sort of, you know reason where they was trying to introduce us to the precursor to C++ and then get us onto C++. It was because we found out after, the lecturer who did it, he preferred C and he refused to do C++. But he was a I don't we don't really have tenure in this country, but he was a pretty old professor where he had been there for a while, so I don't think they was going to get rid of him.
Mm.
But again, that's, one of those things. But they did, I know, rejig a few things around where they did say, they started doing C++ from first year, because I remember getting into second year, and obviously the intensity of the projects ramps up a fair bit, and we've just done C, and now we're having to learn C++. And when you haven't done object oriented programming before, that's it,
Right.
it just blows you away,
Yeah.
good and bad, and you just think, what the hell's going on? So I did see that a lot. And then other tools as well that we were using, they would just be old software, old tools, and it's just like, that's not what the industry is using.
No, absolutely. You're right. And I mean, there is a charm to there's an idea to using like C, just learning it like, okay, this is what's actually going on under the hood, with memory management and so on,
Yes.
alloc and malloc and all that stuff. Like that's good knowledge to know in the back of your head, like keeping that in mind. But it's like, yeah, it should just be an introduction, like 1 month C, and then you move on or something like that. Just the
Yeah, not a
basics.
whole
It's like,
year.
yeah, like yeah, exactly. That's yeah. So if it's like, I'm starting out, what should I do? Like, I don't think you should start with C, or maybe even C++. Maybe start with like C sharp, or Java, or Python, or one of the like modern languages. Um, just from Otherwise you just go down this weird path where where you start at C and then work your way up. It's like it's going to take you years to get somewhere. Um, but yeah, in terms of what you asked about earlier about OpenGL, I think I had the chance to try both DirectX and OpenGL, and as you know, it's like it can be really tough to get something on screen. But it's like OpenGL to render something is like 5 lines, and then DirectX is like 200 lines or something. It's crazy. This was DirectX 10 and 11, so it's changed from to 12 and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I remember another crazy one, because at uni we did OpenGL, we did DirectX over the few years that I was there, but we
Mhm.
also, on another module, again, like, it just seems so random. We did 3D drawing using the Win32 API. No OpenGL, no DirectX, just using the Win32 API, and I mean, trying to do that was horrible.
That is classy, though. I mean, the
I
balls on the
hated the
person.
Win32 API. That's the stuff that I definitely don't want to go back and do.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's intense. Like, I remember the Windows API. You can do some crazy stuff with it. You can do like shared memory where you would have like two programs that share the same amount of bytes on the hard drive, and they can both deposit and take from that. Like they can be like, oh, I've got this shared space on the hard drive where we both these programs are kind of borrowing from or taking from, which is an interesting concept, Um, but yeah, that's the Windows API is also just like Windows often is. It's too big for itself. It's too
Yeah.
it's too much, too many classes, too much stuff going on.
Yeah, it's got a lot of. I'm just talking about Windows in general because obviously it's been around for since the early days of at least consumer grade computers,
Hmm.
and it's got a lot of stuff on there. It supports the amount of legacy stuff it does support is actually ridiculous, and but as a result, there's just like I said, so many classes, so many features, so much stuff there that it just overwhelms and overcomplicates things and people. And but yeah, that's just Windows in general.
Yeah. So wait. So you studied some like coding and stuff like that. Did you do that for games, or was it like more general purpose, or how was the what
No,
was
no,
the
it's for games because the degree was games programming.
right? Exactly.
So
So then did you end up like did you enjoy that? Did you like the process of making games and stuff like that, or
oh yeah, like the process and the experience of making games, it's something I think about a lot because right now I'm not like the main stuff that I do that let's say makes money is not game related. The it's programming related and there's some other stuff as well and it's technical, but it's not game related. And I a little while back did start some personal game projects again because I've done some apps before, released some games on the mobile store,
hmm,
and I wanted to get back into it. And I just need to put more time into because I really do enjoy especially when I make progress in that compared to let's say a client project. The client project is fine, it's all well and good, but making your own game, like that experience is just great. I really do like working in a little team, not a team in a company, but like my own team, and trying to get people to work with you on something, especially when they've got their families. 'Cause, I'm married now, I've got a daughter, but I always find that I'm willing to like try and find the hours
yeah,
when so many other people aren't. Like I'll give my family the time, but then I might sacrifice some of my own time. Like I'm willing to wake up one morning at 5 a.m. If somebody is willing to put in a couple of hours
right,
in, for example, or something along those lines. But the thing is other people aren't, and most aren't, and they just want to find the time within their regular busy schedules, and it becomes very difficult. So that's the issue I'm having right now. I'm working, like I said, I'm working on some projects, just need to focus on them and actually do some work on them, 'cause
yeah.
it's been a while since I've opened my current game project. I would like to get back to it.
No, that's what it's all about. But I recognize that's stuff you're talking about, where like you might think, okay, if tomorrow, if I get up 2 hours earlier, I might be able to squeeze in some more time and do that type of stuff. That could be exciting, or it could be really tiring, depending on how how the rest of everything is going on.
Yeah, I mean nowadays, because I'm not old, but I'm definitely older than I was when I was at university. I'm 31 now, and I'll be
Right.
32 at the end of this year.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, it's the same age. I'm guessing we must have gone uni at the same sort of time. When did you go uni?
Yeah, I started in 2013, so that would be right around
Okay.
the yeah.
Okay, so so as I was wrapping up, you were starting.
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely know that at the end of the day, or a few hours before I go to sleep, I can tell that I'm a lot more tired than I used to be 7 years ago, 6 years ago when I was mid
Obvious.
20s. But again, that's just inevitable. Obviously, like I got a family now. There's other things also on my mind that's obviously draining energy. I work out now. I'm doing a bunch of a lot of work as well. So I know I'm gonna get tired, but like I said, I'm willing to try and find an hour or here. It's either to do it because I had a because we got this podcast now. It's 11:44 a.m. in the UK where I am, and I had another podcast at 7 a.m. So
Right.
I did that because that was the time. Obviously, for them, they was in a different country, so it was like 9 a.m. for them. So it was like a good time. So they woke up, brushed their teeth, had some food, and they jumped on the podcast. Whereas for me, I was waking up at like 6:30, quarter to 7, but I didn't mind that. It's
Yeah.
because I'm doing something, getting stuff done, and I feel like a lot of people aren't willing to put that sacrifice in. Yeah, that's the issue I have. I'm trying to work with other people, but trying to find people that are willing to find the time is very, very difficult. And even just the time to go back and forth over, let's say, Slack or Discord or over WhatsApp to try and do stuff. Because if you, let's say, can't jump on a call at the same time, but the other person do a bit of work when they can, and the other person do work when they can, that's fine as well. It's
Yeah.
just finding a team that is willing to be as committed as you, or as close as you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Within within some kind of reason. Yeah. No. I mean, I I recognize a lot of that, and for me, it's gotten to this point where like I've seen big projects and I've seen small projects and I've seen everything in between now, and it's like I would like to find something that's pretty small that I can manage, that's not super crazy, that I can, even if I find like a small scope, and then I can probably shave some stuff off if I need to, and scope it down a bit and still be okay at the end, because I could see myself, you know, oh man, I want to make the best game I possibly could, my ideal dream game, and then it just turns into this nightmare of different mechanics and everything, all the features that I want to throw in there. I don't want to be in that space. I actually want to make something real small, real, tiny, even maybe just a small, like, uh, mobile app or something, or some small Steam game, like a survivor type game, or something. um, one of the things that's been that I've been doing lately is just Warcraft 3 maps.
Okay.
Yeah, just modding and stuff like that, and it's been real fun. Some guy made a map called Tower Survivors, and it turns out that the map was unprotected, which means that you can go in there with the world editor and just mess around. And I
Mhm.
did that, and I added some stuff to it, and it was so quick to do that it gave me the instant feedback. I could just host the game on BattleNet,
Yeah.
their thing, and immediately people could join, and they gave some feedback, and I could go right back to developing. And it was just such a quick turnaround that it felt good to be back in that kind of mind frame. So that's kind of the stuff that I want to make. Is just small stuff that I can really quickly iterate on and then move on.
Oh yeah, and like push out updates and features, a lot quicker than what you can if you're on some big project. Let's say whether it's within a company or a team or even on your own thing. But yeah, like having a mobile game that's, let's say, just high score based, and it's just one screen outside of a menu and settings and high score and game over screen. It's just one game screen, and what you can do. Especially once it's built and it's all pretty working well and connected, it's not that difficult to start, tinkering away and changing things and updating things. It's the initial setup, the initial creation process that's the more, time consuming and the harder part of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the larger teams, getting stuff done can take months or even
Hmm.
years if you're unlucky. Like, especially if you've got a custom game engine, it's like, these tools or these features aren't up to par. Let's coordinate and try to improve that. I mean, you can do, if you know how to do it yourself, you can do it pretty quickly. But once you need to start involving other people, like let's say you need a UI artist on, and you need a programmer, and you need someone else, like coordinating that type of effort, and especially a slow moving engine and stuff like that, it could take like a long time. So you might not see the results that instantly if you're working in a big team.
No, you don't. And obviously, you have less of a say as well in terms of what you want to do and what features you want to, add as well. So there's that issue. You have less experimentation. So like, whilst you're doing some feature, some other feature might, come up and you think, what, this would be great within this, and this would be great within that. Obviously, that structure can be good, especially to keep some, people on target in terms of getting stuff done. But it does mean that you might not get to do the things that you want to do, and that's definitely one of the problems with working in a company. So you're like, when you was working at Paradox, you mentioned that they use a custom engine. Was that a pure custom engine, or was it based off an existing engine that they had modified so much it was basically a custom engine?
Yeah, it was. I think it's evolved over years. So they started with, I don't know when they started, but like it was made to do these kind of map painter type games, this like strategy games.
Yeah.
And it's just been developing like in house since then, and they've added stuff onto it. So to make it more modern, like they added Vulkan support for a more modern renderer and stuff like that, and they've added a bunch of tools and stuff like that. But at the core of it, it's still the same kind of engine that saw back in the day as well.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that you obviously went to university. What specific degree did you study at uni?
So I studied as a technical artist,
Okay.
and first time I studied, I did it in 2013, and then you know it was a fast period of my life where we were all like 20 to 25 years old. We were all like partying and having fun, and it was just I wasn't focusing on the school much. I was just doing stuff and having fun. And at after, I don't know, 1 or 2 years maybe, I was kind of like catching up to myself, going like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm not I need to learn stuff. I'm here to learn. Like, what am I doing? So I was kind of refocusing, trying to find my way again, and um, just looking at like what should I do and stuff like that. And I took some software jobs, tried that, but it wasn't my thing. I wanted to go back to games, so I was like, okay, so fuck all that. Let's rethink this. So I checked what I could do, and there was another technical artist program like a few towns away. And I looked at that and I was like, okay, this one is like 1.5 years, internship baked in, and then they have an excellent like track record of putting people in the industry. Because that was one of the big problems with the first education, was that after you were done, it was like there's no connection to the games industry, so everybody goes straight to software development. Which is like, why would you possibly do that if you want to go all the way into games? So it didn't make any sense. So then when I found that second one, I when I came into like that school, I was ready, like loaded. Like I was so ready to I wasn't fucking around anymore. So I kind of got in there and I did my thing, and then I you know uh, went straight into the industry after that. And then since then I've been just kind of going.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, I know how it is. When you are in your 20s, the direction is very different. Your priorities as well are also very different.
Yes, for sure.
So, on your LinkedIn, you got something called the Game Assembly. What's that, and how does that fit into your gaming German journey?
Yeah, so that's that second education, and that's the one that I really would recommend to people who are looking to study in Sweden for games. Is the Game Assembly, because they have an excellent connection to the games industry. Like, the internship was baked into the education, and
Okay. Yeah.
everything was just kind of, they kind of threw everything at you, and kind of hoped that you would like stick it out. And a lot of people do, because once you are given a lot of responsibility, it's kind of it's a weird thing where it wakes something up inside you, where you're like, okay, I need to live up to this. And so you do, and then it just is a positive feedback loop kind of. um,
Yeah. So obviously you're taking a break from regular job for now, doing your own stuff, freelance stuff. How important do you think it is to take a break from regular jobs and try your own thing? In your opinion?
I think it's for. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but for me, it's absolutely crucial. I don't think I could survive another month. Meaning that, of course, I could go on and on and on and work, but it's like I got into this. I don't know how to describe it, but this rut or something where every day looks the same as the previous day, basically. And I didn't like that. That's not why I liked the industry. I liked it because it was dynamic, it was fun, and it was creative. So I wanted to get back to that. And even if I end up doing nothing for 3 months or something, that's a win in itself, because then I know that, like, I know this about myself, is that as soon as I step away from trying to bang my head against something, that's when the creativity comes back. Basically, as soon as I'm sure you're familiar with that, like when you're like trying to solve a problem and you're trying to solve something, and you like try and you try and you try and it doesn't work, and then like you're like, fuck it, I'll just go have lunch or something, and you go on a walk or something, and then suddenly it just comes to you from nowhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for in the more long term, is kind of taking that break, refocusing and thinking about what I actually want to do. So yeah, but I do think it's important to take a break, even if that might be taking a little vacation or something, or making sure that you feel good about where you're going in general. That is super important. I think it's underrated, actually.
Yeah, I think it's society as a whole, puts it down that, oh, okay, you don't have a job anymore. Like even if you switch jobs a few too many times, people start talking, they start saying things. They obviously, you need to try and cut that out in terms of you caring about that. But like people have an opinion about that. But like if you say you're in a good job, that you want to take a break and you just want to try your own things, relax for a bit. As long as you're not your family or anyone around you isn't suffering as a result, people look at you and be like, why are you doing that? Like,
Right.
it is such a strange thing, but yet those very same people would not work on a weekend if
Yeah.
they had a choice. And it's like, why wouldn't you work on a weekend then if you're so committed to always having a job?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, it's I respect the grind. I do. I mean, people who put in more than their fair share of hours and everything. It's that's super respectable. And sometimes you have to do that, and sometimes you do it because you want to get ahead and stuff
Hmm.
like that. I totally sympathize, and I get that. Um, but sometimes it's also worth, if you're gonna stick around for the long haul, it's worth taking a minute and taking a breath, making sure that you're all right as well. That's
Yes.
important.
Oh yeah, for sure. Having that little rest period. How are you finding the freelance life? Like in terms of getting clients, in terms of getting work, what tools are you finding that are working best, and what tools would you not recommend for people?
Yeah, so I'm in a bit of a lucky spot because of my role. Is a role that is very highly requested at the moment. Like as far as the last, I don't know, 3 4 years, or maybe 5 years. Like a technical artist, someone who's kind of in between disciplines. That is a growing kind of need for that in the industry. So I'm really lucky in terms of that, because that means that I can. Um, People need that all the time, and they need someone who can come in and uh, make some stuff, and then I don't need to be there for the whole development, which is great for freelancing. I can get in there, do like make some shaders and some visual effects, which is kind of the two things that I do most of, and then I do some tools as well and stuff like that. um, I do recommend, if you want to get into that type of stuff, just boot up all Unity or Unreal and start messing around and find tutorials and stuff like that. And that's how you would get into it. But yeah, I feel good about the freelancing stuff, because I don't feel like uh, I don't feel like I need to look for too hard for work. It kind of comes.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, because you hear some people and they have to look along, they find it difficult. But obviously, if that's not the case for yourself, and and it's giving you an opportunity to take a break from the regular 9 to 5 corporate grind, then that's fair enough. Are these sort of freelance stuff? Are they remote or are they on site? Or like, what's the situation there?
I mean, some people want you to be on site, but I prefer remote. I have a comfortable workstation. I feel good where I'm at and stuff like that, and I have all the tools available or that I need to have, in terms of software, and I've got a great monitor, which is important for at least for me. And I think if you're like if you're a coder or a programmer, you probably need like a vertical monitor or something, that classic thing where you have a
Yeah.
vertical standing monitor. Um, but yeah, tools are important for sure. But the thing is, like, most software is free or available. You can usually find some kind of way to even some of the art tools are have started to appear on Steam, like Substance. I saw Substance on there a few times and stuff like that. Um, it's more accessible now than it used to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. The opportunities available and the tools, the accessibility has definitely improved over the years. So, because you've done OpenGL, you've done DirectX, which one do you prefer and why? Like, if you had to make that one choice, which one do you prefer and why?
I would go with OpenGL, but actually, I would probably learn Vulkan
Okay,
because
yeah. When I'm saying OpenGL, I'm saying the Vulkan route as well.
yeah, the OpenGL family, let's say, yeah.
Yes.
No, absolutely, but I think that is I would prefer that. It seems to me like Vulkan is pretty. I don't know if you've seen Doom or Doom Eternal, one of those
Yes.
games. Like, they run super super silky smooth
I
on
know.
a lot
Like,
of rigs,
the
and it,
frame rates are
insane.
insane for what
Yeah,
they're pushing out. Obviously, id knows what they're
right.
doing.
Of
Anyways,
course.
they've got a good team. They got clearly good management that's organizing it all, and they're obviously using the latest tools. Obviously, even their OpenGL, API versions work well. Yeah, when you put it into Vulkan, because I've got a Steam Deck and I tried Doom Eternal, with a sort of a what's it called, a varied resolution, where you just go
Mhm.
up and
Yeah.
down a little bit depending on the frame rate. I was able to get pretty much a silky smooth 60 on max settings without any noticeable drop in resolution. Obviously, it was clearly obviously dropping, but because obviously the screen is small, but to get that level of fidelity and play,
Wow.
and then I compared it to Doom, the original, the 2016 one,
Uh-huh.
and Doom Eternal runs better than 2016 on
Oh
hardware.
wow.
And when you're seeing that, because it's usually just the thing that the next game, like 3, 4, 5 years later, is gonna just run worse on the same hardware. It was just a given. Like, there was never really a case where you never thought that would be the case,
Yeah.
assuming it's all optimized as well. If we put Crisis out the window, where Crisis One just was not optimized for multi-core, and they just
Yeah.
threw everything at it, all the special effects at the time. But every other game, you get let's say Bioshock, and then you get Bioshock Two, Bioshock Infinite. There's no way that you're running Bioshock
Oh
Infinite
yeah.
on max on the same hardware that what you did with Bioshock One, but you could kind of do that with Doom Eternal, especially if you had high-end hardware from when Doom originally came out. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic that Vulkan has introduced. Have you done much Vulkan yourself?
Nah, I mean, I need to learn. It's one of those areas that I just haven't looked into. But
Hmm.
from what I've heard, it's similar to OpenGL, but it's like you've got more advanced features and stuff like that. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm really like, yeah, I wouldn't mind hopping into that challenge at some point, but not right now. But yeah, I'm excited for that. It's fun that you mentioned Crisis. It's one of those games that I really enjoyed when it came out, but yeah, it was a real system killer. It was murderous. Uh, but that was a cool game.
It
I
was.
just, yeah, I just remember like being amazed by shooting down the trees, and it would like destroy the tree at the specific location where you
Yeah,
shot it.
every little part, and then when you shot the obviously not all of the trees, but that main tree,
Right.
because they had that main tree, they had a few main leaves, plants, they had a few main sort of twigs that if you shot, they worked really well, and if you sort of moved through it, they would react to the body. And I find most games still to this day aren't that good at that
Yeah.
aspect. I'm trying to think. I was playing a game recently. I was playing Horizon Call of the Mountain on PSVR too, because that came out last week. And I was out because obviously it's VR. I have controllers to represent my hands in the game. I was able to sort of interact with the leaves, and I was like, this reminds me of Crisis, and they just don't do much beyond surface level in games. It's
Yeah.
too surface level, and yeah, things get a little higher resolution. You get HDR. You get it looks a little nicer every year or two, but it's still in terms of depth. I feel like my opinion on this is I would rather have a game that's a 720p and looks like Avatar and has a fully interactable world than a game that looks like any game out today at 4K. And it's as if 1080 isn't good enough. Like, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I like 4K. I'm happy to watch things in 4K and play in 4K, but there's so much I feel like they could do if they just stuck with a lower resolution
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just like said, you know what, we're gonna have crazy physics. We're gonna have it, to the point where it's almost what I eventually want to see is a game engine that real time can simulate atoms because at that point, if you can simulate atoms, I was thinking about it, you wouldn't have an object in a game that's, let's say, a fence that's made out of wood, or meant to look like wood with a texture that when you shoot at it, it makes a wooden sound that's pre-recorded. It
Mhm.
would make a wooden sound and break like wood because it would be constructed in the same atomic configuration, and the bullet would be constructed in the same atomic configuration as a bullet, and the same way it goes through the air, the aerodynamics. Obviously, I know that's a lot. It's too
Yeah.
intense. Obviously, you have simulations that you can do stuff like that, but a real time game. But I was thinking, imagine that you literally create wood in the game, or literally you create metal, and as a result, if you drop a bowling ball on it, it will bend and do
Yeah.
what it needs to do.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the dream, right? But
Yeah.
we're so far away from that. But that reminds me of one game actually, which was when it came out, it amazed me, it floored me, which was Half-Life 2.
Oh yeah.
When that came out, and you got to like play with the physics, and you dropped
The
something, you dropped
gravity
like
gun.
the
Yeah, yeah.
gravity gun and all, and actually like now that you mentioned wood and stuff like that, they had like wood pieces, and when you shot the wood pieces, it would break, and then you could break those into smaller pieces, and then break those into even smaller pieces.
Yeah, like the boxes,
Yeah.
and the pallets, you could pick it up with the gravity gun, throw it at the enemies. Like, yeah, those physics. I mean, I was playing Half Life not that long ago. It's one of those games I usually play on a yearly basis, hoping that there will be a new one. I know they had the VR one, but ignoring that, I'm still dreaming of it, and I'm still
Yeah.
every E3 that comes around, I'm like, there's a chance, and then E3 wraps up, and I'm like, nope, nothing
Yeah,
happened.
no, not gonna happen. Yeah, maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll happen.
Yeah,
Let's keep hope alive.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's something in me that's thinking that an announcement is soon with them, because they've done the Steam Deck that's been successful. They did Half Life Alyx, which was successful. Valve Index successful in its own right for the type of headset it was. It wasn't a Quest headset where it was affordable and
Yeah.
accessible for everyone. But for what it was, they did well with it. I feel like Valve's kind of started doing well with their own projects again, and because they had their Steam machines, which didn't do that well. And fair, they had that. I'm trying to think what that game was they released. I think it began with an A. It was like kind of like a card playing game.
Oh,
And
yeah. What's the
do
what's the
you
name
do
of
you
that?
remember the one? And that didn't do too. Because I remember there was a big hype about that, like new game from Valve. And then I saw it, I was like, why is Valve doing this? I was like, leave this to the mobile developers.
Yeah.
Leave this to the developers that can't do a Half Life, that can't do a Team Fortress or Portal. It's like, what? Obviously, I'm happy they don't release a new game every year, and it's just like a new Assassin's Creed or a new FIFA. But likewise, I feel like they're just the thing is they're in a position where they can pay every employee without realistically having to make a game because they got Steam.
Yeah, passive income
Yeah, they
basically.
got so much passive income from there, and it's such a shame they obviously I know they are working on stuff, and I mean it's good they have that quality standard set that if it just isn't really good, they just not releasing it, and obviously they just don't talk about stuff until it's towards the end of you know being released. Because Half-Life Alex, they didn't really talk about it until I think a few months, 2 3 months before it was due for release. So the game was basically finished, and they was just wrapping up probably just a bit of testing. And so yeah, I mean, I do appreciate it from that aspect, but I do want more games from Valve. Valve is one of those companies where you're gonna have a good time. Like a
Right.
like a new franchise. You know, I I loved that idea that they had with doing Half Life 2 episodes. I remember when Gabe Newell talked about it, and he said, instead of spending 5 6 years making a new game, we'll just release an episode every 1 to 2 years, and there'll be like a quarter to a third of the game, and there'll be a quarter to a third of the price, and but we can also make sure every couple of years there's new technology in each of the ones. So instead of you getting one and then you go out to date after a couple of years, which Half Life still has held up to be fair, but
Yeah.
then they did episode 2, and then that was it.
Come on, Gabe. It's been 10 years. Where is it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, how long has it been? Been what? Well,
Yeah.
15 since episode 2.
Right. No, I mean I'm still waiting. I have some amount of faith left. I used to feel this way about Blizzard as well, but then things happen and they get bought by the overlords and all that stuff. So that's off the map for me. I mean, I'm sure Diablo 4 will be a great product and everything, but it's not like it used to be. And I feel like Valve. I hope they still have that that special something still in them. I think they do. Alex was a good game. I really enjoyed it. I've got a Quest 2, and that's the way I experience VR games right now. Um, the Quest is really an amazing piece of technology, and like you said, it's accessible. It's like priced correctly. It's got the like form factor that I like, and everything just kind of works in a way. It's sure the software is still slow. It takes a lot of time to boot up and stuff like that, but that's mostly fixable. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Um, Yeah, for sure. The Half-Life Alex was a fantastic game, for what it was, and it's one of my favorite VR games. It really felt like an actual game and
yeah,
not like a big tech demo. Because there's so many games that are in VR. Like, you got Beat Saber, really good, really fun, but it almost just feels like a really big tech demo.
yeah,
It
for
doesn't
sure.
feel like that sort of rich, deep game. You've got stuff like Lone Echo, that's really good as well, and then you got Red Matter 2. But and that's the thing I'm excited about PSVR 2 is that we got a modern era headset, and the games from the big studios that are priced at $50 $60 or 50 60 quid are gonna be a bit more in depth, like an actual game. With Horizon Call of the Mountain is. It's not gonna be just some fluffy tech
Right.
demo. But yeah, Half Life Alex was a fantastic game. And the other thing I love about the Quest headsets, because I got the Quest headsets as well, is that not only is it cheap, I mean cheaper, a lot cheaper. It's just to get into a game and start playing is so much quicker. Like
Yeah.
compared to because I've got a Valve Index, and every week I'll look at it and be like, I want to play it again. But then I'm like, have to, plug it in. The base stations. I mean, they're in position. I just need to plug them in from the back. But and then I'm like, oh, they're gonna be fussy, and then
Yeah,
the computer. I've got to make sure. It's just so many things, and then I put the Quest on, and I'm just in a game,
yeah,
like just like that. And because I've got the Quest Pro as well, I bought that one, and because it's got a dock, it's always updated. Like it's
right.
always charged, it's always updated. I'm like, I can literally just pick it up and put it on, and I'm ready to go. I've got no thing of I have to spend 20 minutes to set it up when I only wanted a half an hour gaming session.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's where it needs to go. That's where they're lacking at the moment in general. The VR sphere, they
Yeah,
really need to get that nailed down to for it. And I mean, someone like John Carmack speaks about this a lot,
it
where it's
does.
like spend if a lot of that effort went to like streamlining the process in terms of software, a lot of users wouldn't get turned off. They would keep going because the tech is pretty much there in terms of like resolution and
Yeah, for most
refresh rate.
people willing to play it, obviously it can get better for sure. But it's at a point where I think a lot of people, every person I always love doing this. When someone comes around that I haven't seen for a while, get them into VR, even if they're a bit hesitant. I find most people are, especially if they're not too old. But whenever they try it, they love the experience. And then obviously the price might put them off. The Quest is obviously a lot more affordable now, and but the whole process of it's just almost like a bit too technical.
Yeah,
It's it needs to be more like a console, which is what the Quest is, and less like a PC, which is too technical. That's the reason I know a lot of people don't want to do PC gaming. I love PC gaming, but I know a lot of people don't like it. Even the ones that can afford a nice rig is because they're like, oh, it's just too much hassle. Drivers, and then dealing with Windows, and then this and that and this, and whereas if they have a PlayStation, they literally just download the game and they're playing. There's a lot less hassle.
yeah,
It just works.
yeah, for sure.
So obviously, I remember you was talking about Crisis. I'm guessing you saw the announcement last year that they was doing Crisis 4.
I did not. That's great news. I'm
Yes,
excited.
so that's another reason that gives me some hope for Half Life is that obviously after Crisis 3, probably didn't think they were going to do another one. Then they obviously did Crisis Remastered. I mean, that ran pretty well on the Switch, to be fair, as well. And they did, obviously Crisis, 2 and 3 remastered. And because obviously that company had a bit of financial trouble as well. But yeah, they released a trailer. It was just like an announcement trailer. There's nothing actually in there. But the official trailer from the Crisis YouTube channel, January last year, saying they are working on Crisis 4. A working title at the moment, but I'm hoping for some announcement this year, maybe something a bit more, in depth.
Yeah, maybe like
Yeah.
a gameplay demo or something if
Oh
they're ready
yeah.
for that kind of thing.
Yeah, because if they wait too long, the we'll be looking at a PS6
Yeah,
and the next Xbox. I mean, a new Switch is due anyway because the Switch has been around for 6 years now.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, what do you think is the likelihood of a new Nintendo console announcement at E3? Because even the OLED version has been around for 2 years now, roughly.
Yeah, I mean,
Almost.
when's the Nintendo Direct? Has that already been?
I feel like it was already come and gone because didn't they announce and release Metroid Prime Remastered as a result of
Right.
that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not a big Nintendo guy, but I do see the value in adding a new Switch or some kind of new console where it's like
A bit more
they,
powerful.
right, a bit more powerful. They update themselves to what the other guys are doing, kind of, but then still, the idea of Nintendo is that they do their own thing and they don't like make compromises, and that's great. But you also have to keep in times, like update yourselves to the times and in terms of like tech and power and stuff like that. So I would love to see that. I would love to see another Switch or that type of console. They have some awesome ideas, and just make quality products.
Oh yeah, and I would like to see Nintendo bring. I know technically the Switch has the capabilities in there, but like to see them bring back some of the Nintendo Wii aspect of the gameplay, the interaction.
Yeah.
Because even though like the actual controller itself can do everything that the Wii controller can, it's not as big and as comfortable. Like a Joy-Con on its own is compared to a Wii controller. I mean, even an updated Wii controller that you could connect to the Switch, I think that would be a nice addition. Or even the ability to connect. I mean, yeah, I don't see why you can't, because the Wii controllers have Bluetooth, so I don't see any limitation of them being able to connect it via Bluetooth apart from the sensor bar.
Right.
But I guess you could maybe get around that by, yeah, the sensor bar really does ruin things a little bit if it was built in and it was not sensor bar based. But some sort of updated system like that would be nice to have games like that again, uh, with an actual focus on a Wii Sports style game. I know they had like a newer version, but it wasn't the same as the old one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they had that game where you it was like a bunch of mini games, and you kind of one of them was like a cowboy. You know, you draw, and
Yes, I
then
know the one you mean. Yes, I mean,
yeah,
again, that was nice, but I would like some just full games.
yeah,
Using the Wii style, motion stuff. I feel like with Nintendo, they do something. They a lot of time do it well and different, but then they just totally move on to something else. It's like they had the DS stuff, and then they had 3DS, so they introduced some 3D aspect of it. Then they abandoned that. They abandoned the dual screen. They're on Switch now. Because obviously Switch has kind of taken over from the Wii U, and the DS side of things. And I feel like they're just gonna kind of. I mean, I wonder if they will abandon it, because it's done so well for them. But it just depends if their next one does well. Because if Wii U did terribly, if Wii U did so well, they probably wouldn't have gone towards the Switch.
yeah. Exactly. I mean, there somewhere in the world there's an abandoned warehouse with 900,000 Wii U's, and at some point when the apocalypse comes, someone's gonna have to use that for fuel.
Oh yeah, I mean one of them's downstairs in my house. I remember I bought a Wii U on launch. I mean I like games, technology in general, so I will buy
Yeah,
all the latest consoles. But yeah, it was one of those things where at that point the PS3 and 360 had been out for a while. Yes, they were more powerful than those systems. It came just before the PS4 came out, and it just he just couldn't compete. He was basically the titles on there were the old titles, were those these mainly getting outside of specific Wii U games, mainly getting on PS3 and Xbox 360 games when the PS4 was around the corner.
yeah. And I mean, the Wii U was that Outlast. Let's see if I can pull any more titles. There was a Zelda game at some point.
Yes.
Wait, Breath of the Wild was out on Wii
It,
U
it
as
was
well.
initially, yes, and that was one of the ones that did really well. Mario Kart 8. I mean, a lot of
Right?
people that play it on Switch don't know that Mario Kart 8 actually came out for the Wii U, and the Switch is kind of just like a remaster of that.
Yeah,
It's not a new game. I mean, Nintendo has been very cheeky with Mario Kart. They've made a lot of money off Mario Kart, and they haven't done much with it. And even the new map packs are just old maps that they've just spruced up.
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo seems to get away with it compared to feel like if Sony or Xbox did it, they would get a lot of hate, whereas Nintendo
Yes,
doesn't.
yeah. I mean, you could argue that the PlayStation Vita was a misstep, but I enjoyed
I,
that.
I love the Vita. I mean,
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
great,
good.
but again, it came at a time when mobile phones were so powerful, and most people that wanted to do better gaming kind of just went onto a mobile phone.
Exactly.
Because before, yeah, you had Engage, and yes, you could do some games on your Nokia, but it was not the same as a PSP or a DS, especially the
Oh no.
PSP. Like that actually felt almost like a console experience, and you was like, I'm playing an actual game. I'm playing GTA on here. I'm
Yeah.
playing, Coded Arms, Gangs of London. These actual full fledged games, and then mobile came about, and they had some full-fledged games as well, but then they had the option to have a Candy Crush or an Angry Birds, which frankly some people just preferred that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's a shame that Sony never did another handheld, because I love the idea of the PS Vita. The graphics were so good. Yeah, I would love to see them do a new console, like a handheld.
Yeah,
But I
dude,
wonder if
I
they
love the
will.
PSP. The PSP is a glorious piece of hardware, though.
It is like the games that
The
came out
games.
on that, and what you could do with it, and how fun those games were. I mean, which PSP did you have, and which one was your favorite?
I think I got the 2000 PSP 2000, which
PSP
was
2000. Yes,
probably this. It must have been the second revision because
it
1000
was,
must have been the
yes.
first.
Yeah, because you had
Yeah,
1000, 2000, 3000. Then you had the, I think, E1000, which
yeah,
removed, what did they remove? The Wi-Fi? I think
yeah,
they removed
something like that. And then they had the
something like
Go.
the
Or,
PSP Go as well. Yeah, because I had
yeah,
the 1000, I had the Go. Yeah, those are the two ones. I mean, I still have my PSP 1000. I play so much. It's knackered. Like, there's, I don't know what it is, because I keep all my stuff in good condition, and that is in good condition. It's just the stuff inside has just, I mean, failed pretty much, because
yeah.
when I put a new battery in, it goes dead really quickly. Even with a new one, it just goes really bad. And but I played it too much. My PSP Go didn't play as much, but I play that now and again. Now, but again, it's hard to warrant when I've got a Steam Deck that I can play all the, the PlayStation games on, the PSP games,
Oh
and I
yeah,
can
for sure.
do it on the Steam Deck, up the resolution a bit, have save states, have cheats, really easily accessible. But the feel of using a PSP Go or a PSP, the original, is definitely fantastic. But yeah, if anyone's interested, 2000 or 3000, I would say, would be the way to go, because it's a lot more comfortable. Because 1000, the edges were a bit on the, not sharp to cut you, but just sharp, they just weren't comfortable. And I know with the 2000, 3000, they made you a lot lighter and a lot nicer in the hand.
You know what? Now that I think about it, I think it is a 1000 because I got it on the release. I got it on release, which, and I actually got it in the UK. I was over there for holiday with my parents, and uh, it was around Christmas time, and like the release of the PSP had just released, and I was like, damn, I really want that thing. And so my parents got it for me, and I really didn't think too much about it. But when I got home, I realized that the plugs are different, of course. So I had to have like a fucking converter to go from UK plugs to Swedish plugs and stuff, like wall plug and things like that. But it was still worth it. It was such an awesome console, and then like just the software itself was sleek and beautiful, just like the PS3, the XMB
Yeah, that cross media bar, when,
cross media bar,
yeah,
and
like,
it's
yeah, it just
just
felt so good.
classy or something.
Yeah, like compared to DS
Yeah.
and even 3DS. Like 3DS just seems like. Have you ever used Kodi, the media player?
No, I haven't used that.
You haven't used that, okay? But like, it, the DS and 3DS interface feels like somebody's whipped it up in their bedroom.
Yeah, it seems like a toy in comparison.
Yeah, whereas PSP, the XMB, feels like an actual company with money's made it, and they've
Yeah,
actually tested it, and people actually like it. So yeah, the XMB was, and then they briefly had that on their Sony TVs as well. They had the XMB interface.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And the XMB on there was also like a relationship between the PS3 and the PSP. I mean,
mm,
you could play remotely even back then, which is it was just crazy. This is like 2006 or 7 or something when those two consoles matched up. But that was a really revolutionary idea at the time.
yeah, I feel like Sony was a bit just too early with a bunch of couple of things.
Yeah,
PS Vita, because obviously when you look at Switch, it is just a nicer, bigger Vita with obviously a dock mode, and obviously full fledged games, and they were just a bit too early with that, unfortunately, and it just didn't work because they had. Do you ever? I think it was Japan only. They had the PSX, that
yeah,
that sort of media system, which was a PS2. and like a sort of TV recording with a hard drive and everything, like media player. And I feel like again that was a bit early with that when you've got all the apps on your TV now, and you got Nvidia Shield and Apple TV. They just invested so heavy into it, and because it failed, I feel like they just stepped away from it and never went back to it, and they just went to core PlayStation. And in all fairness, all of their consoles have always been good. PS1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There's never been a console where I've looked at it and be like, that was a dud.
Yeah.
Whereas Nintendo had Wii U, that was a dud. In terms of sales and in terms of just what it did. Whereas PlayStation, every console has sold really well. It's so you can't even say that about them. Whereas Nintendo, they've had that GameCube. Yeah, a lot of people like it, the fan base, but it did not sell the same way a PlayStation did or a Wii did. And same with Xbox. They had the original Xbox, which had a fan base, but it wasn't quite there. 360 had that huge fan base. The price point and the fact they came out before the PS3 really helped, and it was easier to develop for compared to the cell architecture. But then the Xbox One just felt a bit not too sure. And now with the Xbox Series, I think it's a good system, but it's clearly just not selling the way PlayStation is.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And I mean, I feel like I'm no like analyst, but I feel like something that's key there is the Xbox naming convention, where they go like Xbox, original Xbox. Let's just call it Xbox, right?
Which is
And you have-
fine.
which
This
is
is the first
fine.
one.
It's the first one, and then you have Xbox 360 to avoid because the PS3 was coming out. They didn't want to name it Xbox 2, so they would
Yeah.
be like behind in terms of numbering. So they
Yeah.
named it 360, which is a silly number, but hey, go
Yeah.
off,
And there was
and then
like it's the all-round entertainment system, the
right, it was
360 degree. Yeah.
60 degrees, yeah. And then it's like Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, and you're supposed to tell me that a like mother buying her children some entertainment system is supposed to know the difference between them, and also know like on a whim know like which one is powerful, which one is
Which
like the
was newer?
accessible one, which one is newer, which one is
Yeah.
like I just don't see it. I don't see
No,
it.
with PlayStation, a PS5 is newer than the PS3, and
Yeah,
you know that the PS4 Pro is better than the PS4. Like it is very simple, and then the PS4 Slim, even that you can kind of be like, oh, it's just a slimmer version, it's a smaller version. Then you got the Pro. Whereas they, like you said, they had the One S, the One X, but what does that even mean? Like
yeah,
it doesn't mean anything just by name. And then obviously with the PS5, they'll probably have a Pro with that as well,
yeah,
and a slim
exactly.
version with that as well. I mean, yeah, the PS5 definitely looks like those futuristic console renders that people do. When they want the new console to look so futuristic and it never does. It looks like that.
Yeah, it looks like something from a movie where they're like 15 years in the future and they have to
Yeah,
have a console on like next to the TV or
yeah, and
something.
it floats as well.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But obviously, this is just like a regular console. Now, are you into console gaming much?
I used to be. I mean, I have a PS1, 2, 3, and then I had a 360. But then after that, I kind of stopped getting consoles because I kept upgrading my PC and getting new PC
Mm.
and stuff like that. So now I'm all fully PC'd up. Um, but I sometimes I really like the idea of having a console where you have some friends over, you just pop in Tekken and you just play some Tekken or something, and it's really quick, really easy to just grab the controller. Whereas with a PC, it's not really like that.
No, it isn't. But I feel like even with console now, with all the updates and whatnot, and the size of updates, even that can become a pain. You're like, you buy a new game, you're excited for. I've got to the point where I get a new game. If it's a big one like a Call of Duty, I'm like, I'm not even playing it on launch. With all the updates, I'm playing it the day after.
Yeah, no, I mean it's ridiculous install sizes. On PC, it was like I think they've slimmed it down because they got so much hate, but it's like 180 gigs or some
Yeah,
crazy
basically
number.
200 gig, and it's just
That's
like it could, because I was doing a bunch of like Warzone downloading as well with it, I think,
yeah,
and it's like I just want to play the campaign. I don't even want the online. Just let me play my campaign,
yeah,
and the fact that obviously I remember when I first bought a physical game and there was just a code in there and no game,
Oh,
no
right.
disc. I was like, because he had the full on, DVD style case, the big case, and I was like they had already been reducing the manuals to the point where it was just a sheet,
Yeah.
or you had to get the manual off the disc or online. And
Just
then
a formality at this
yeah,
point.
at that point, and then I opened it. I was like, they had the section that you would put the disc. It clearly was cheaper just to buy that case instead of a case that was specially made. And they at the bottom there was just a code, and it was a Steam code, and I was like, what even is like? What's the point of this? Like at this point, yeah, I guess it's just to have it in retail because there's, like you said, there'll be some mother that wants to buy their son the latest game, but they won't understand the idea of Steam or
Yeah,
PlayStation
yeah.
Store.
Absolutely. And I mean that still holds true, but that market has to transform at some point. I don't see how it could keep going this way. And I mean retail is dying, make no mistake. Like it is going away, and Steam and the like are becoming the thing. And that is a natural progression. It's just that it needs to take hold, like you said, in the more accessible sphere where like anybody could pick up a game for someone else, and it's really easy to do, and it's really simple and clear how you go about it. Um,
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, what would be great is if you can go into a store, for example, so let's say if you knew your son's email address or the Steam account name, and you could go into the store like game and say, I want to buy the latest Call of Duty for my son, here's his email, I'll pay the money, and it just appears on his account.
yeah,
I mean, that would be, something like that. Obviously, you got to make sure you give the right email, or or
yeah,
something
yeah,
along those lines. But something like that where, yeah, on PC, it's a given that you are just gonna digitally buy the game now, unless you are buying some sort of special edition that has, I don't know, some extra physical stuff. You are just buying the digital game. It's never a question when a new PC game comes out that I want. I'm just buying it off Steam or
yeah.
maybe some alternative store. Whereas with PlayStation and Xbox, it is still the thing. If I can get a physical, I want the physical copy.
Exactly. I mean, some of them are really beautiful too, like the cases and stuff. I mean, I have a. You remember Stalker, the
Oh
game?
yes.
I have that. Like there was like a on release day. There was like like a rusty plate type container for it, and it was the same. I remember seeing it in the store, and it was the same price as the regular just DVD case. So I was like, what the fuck? The special collector's edition is the same price, so I'll just buy that. And it was just like it's with me to this day. It's just like it just feels more authentic. It looks really good on the shelf and stuff like that. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
nice.
for sure. Yeah, I've got a few. I mean, I used to buy quite a lot of, what's it called, collector's edition games back in the day. And but again, so much of it is, especially on PC, they don't really give discs anymore. So on PC, it's pretty much eliminated for the most part. On console, yeah, there's the odd one. And yeah, then the prices have gone up so crazy. I remember back in the day when the game was 30 to 40 quid, then the like get a special tin edition for like 40, 45 quid, and then you had the super limited edition, like the collector's edition, with like in a big box, and they had a bunch of stuff in there for like 80 to 100. Uh,
Yeah.
but now you're getting it at two, three, £400.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, that's the game market has really changed in terms of pricing. It used to be also that you couldn't really buy games online the way that you can now. You remember like when Xbox 360 was in its like before it was super 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 popular, but when they were just starting out with these online marketplaces and stuff, they really hadn't figured out the pricing yet. It was like kind of Wild West for a while.
Yeah. And now you got websites like CD Keys that you could buy the digital version that are registered on your Steam account for sometimes at a big discount, like sometimes like 50% off.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, what the hell? It's not even like I'm getting some dodgy copy here. And these big websites, they provide some sort of protection as well. And I've never had an issue with any of them. Like
yeah.
when I've when when I bought it, once I didn't get the code, but they automatically refunded anyway because they recognized that the code hadn't been, sent. So again, that wasn't an issue. Uh, yeah, that's the other thing I have problem with digital. I am not buying a game that I can get for 60 quid in stores, and then you're charging me 70 to 80 for a digital. You're giving me no disc, no copy, physical copy. That means I cannot share it with someone, not easily. I cannot resell it. I do not have a collectible item on my, thing. It is, you don't have to pay a physical retailer, so you are actually making more money. The reality is they should be significantly cheaper because they've cut out, game, and I was gonna say Electronic Boutique. Do you remember Electronic Boutique, the store?
Yeah, EB Games. Is
Yeah,
that it?
EB Games.
Hmm.
So, I mean, you've cut out these retailers, which is fine. I don't have a problem with, but you've upped the price, and then you use it as, oh, it's more convenient.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, like none of the companies have said, you know what, we're gonna charge you less for it. Or I mean, the thing is, at best I've seen is them charging retail price, recommended retail, but you can always get it less than recommended retail anyway.
Mm.
If
Yeah.
you buy a physical copy, if you go to shop2.net, you go to Amazon, sometimes a local, one of the supermarkets will have a sale on one of the new games. I know they do that to attract people. And, yeah, the pricing needs to really. I'm surprised there isn't some law in place to prevent them to do the pricing on their stores, because the pricing is ridiculous, and I think that's really what's stopping. If they really want people to go digital, then lower the prices a bit. They'll still make the same money. It's just you'll get more people. I think they'll probably make more money because they'll sell more copies.
Yeah. I mean, that's the laws and stuff. That gets hairy because it's spanning all the countries in the world basically, and they
Oh
all have
yeah,
to like somehow reach a price together, and they have to agree on stuff. I mean, I'm sure that's difficult and everything, but yeah, um, that's kind of why I've started to appreciate the smaller games more. The indie type
yes,
games where you can get like a really great experience for 30 or something along those lines. Where this might not be like the AAA big budget game, but if it's you can see the ratings beforehand and you can be like, okay, is this a game that I want to play? And then if it's come down to it and you buy it on Steam and it's like, this wasn't what I expected, and you only played like half an hour, you can probably refund that game as well. um,
yeah. There's definitely that advantage of using a platform like Steam, whereas with a traditional retailer, yeah, you got good retailers like Amazon with a really relaxed, returns policy. But if you go to an Argos or a Game or a HMV and you buy a game and you open it, you take that seal off, you put it in, and you're like, nah, this wasn't for me. Because I've bought games before, and I'm like, I had so much excitement for it, and this is just so rubbish.
yeah.
And when you buy from one of those retailers, they ain't gonna take it back and be like, you opened it.
Yeah.
So yeah, with Steam and PlayStation, I think, as an Xbox, you do have that option to return stuff. Same with the Quest store as well. Like you have the option to return stuff, and I guess Quest is the first, or one of the first consoles. I mean, if you can call it a consoles that is digital only.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
everything else always has a physical element. Even with the PSP, where they had the UMDs, they had the disc in the case.
yeah. That was cool though. I mean, I really like the
But they
UMD.
but they would eventually start breaking, because I found
Yeah.
the glass part of it, the plastic glass, it would break and they would just go in it.
Yeah,
uh,
I mean,
you
any moving parts, it's gonna break over time. It's
Yeah.
yeah,
Whereas compared to the PS Vita, because it was all flash, and the DS and 3DS and Switch, you really have no issues
yeah,
with with those things.
exactly.
So, oh yeah, for sure. So, what advice would you give to someone that wants to become a game artist, and that's actionable and not generic? So I do get a lot of people saying, they want to become a developer. Some say they want to become, working games. What advice would you give?
I would say start out, start small, look at tutorials, check out something like Brackeys or one of these like big online YouTube tutorials where they have a series. They'll go through how to make a game from A to Z, basically going from the start to the finish. That's important. You can also, let's say that you may want to make a platformer, like you would first search up, okay, how do I make a character jump, how do I make a character walk, how do I make a character die and live and respawn, things like that. And you can find that information online. It's so accessible these days. I would just go download probably Unity or Unreal, and or maybe even Game Maker is great nowadays. I mean, Hotline Miami was made in Game Maker. Undertale was made in Game Maker. You can probably achieve a lot of stuff there too. Uh, yeah, in terms of other advice, like get into the games industry, that's a whole different topic. But I think you need to start with like learning some stuff before you even attempt that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Game Maker has come a long way. So I remember when I used that first in my first year at uni in 2010, it was very rudimentary what you could do with it then.
Yeah, and it was like almost silly, the interface, and it felt like a kid's toy almost. Like
It
it
did,
just,
yes.
yeah. But yeah, they've gone on since then to actually improve that stuff a lot, which is nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so, how important? It sounds like it is. How important is gaming in your life? And what are some of your earliest and fondest memories of gaming?
It is important. I have less. I spend less time playing games now, and I feel like after I've been in the industry a while, I start looking at games differently. So when I see a new release, I look at the features they have, and I look at the effects they have and the shaders and everything. I'm just analyzing things. So that kind of hurts my enjoyment of games nowadays a bit. Uh, but definitely, when I started playing, I started with probably Quake 1 or somewhere around there. That was my like kind of earliest stuff. Then Age of Empires and things like that. That was the early formative games for me. I was primarily a PC type guy, but there was a few console games in there too.
Fair enough. Yeah, I remember some of those older titles. Quake, Unreal Tournament, what
Oh yeah,
2004. Half-Life 1, Half-Life 2. I mean, all those sort of games at that point. Far Cry. Felt like you had so many great games that weren't from the big studios, weren't huge, huge. These other ones that would come and they would become huge games. Like Fear, for example. Have
yeah,
you ever played Fear?
yes, of course,
Oh yeah, like the graphics and then the physics where you could shoot. I can't remember that gun that fired needles effectively.
yeah, yeah,
And you could like literally have the person hanging on the wall. And I remember the AI would flank you. The
yeah.
AI was really good, and then I think they would like throw tables over. Then the lights that were moving, and the shadows, the atmosphere that Fear created was fantastic. It doesn't hold up as well as something like Half Life. I don't know what Valve did with Half Life,
Yeah.
which holds up so well. I remember. I wonder what's your take on this. A friend of mine about 6, 7 years ago, we was talking about this, games holding up, and I remember saying to him that Crash Bandicoot, the original ones, hold up so well. They still feel good to play, and his and hypothesis was that games that are in a more lighter setting, bit more lighter, airy, hold up better than games that are in a sort of darker, more grim setting.
Sure. I mean, back then they used to paint the dark parts into the texture itself instead of the lighting.
Hmm.
Makes sense. So it makes a lot of sense of why that holds up better. If you play Half-Life 1 and you look at the like rock textures and stuff like that, you can notice that they try to paint shadows into the actual rock
Yeah.
in the texture, which I'm not trying to compare that game to a modern graphical engine or anything, but it's like if you just compare that to Crash Bandicoot, where everything is stylized and kind of light, and like your friend was saying, it's kind of easier to forget that you're in an old game engine.
Yeah. Yeah, because I love playing the original Crash Bandicoots. Don't get me wrong, Insane Trilogy did a really good job with the older ones, but I like playing the older ones as well, and I like playing Half Life. But when I try and play something like Fear or some other games from even some that aren't that old, I I just don't get the same feeling. And yeah, it's interesting that you're saying with the older games, the darker parts, they would effectively just put it into the texture, and as a result, it's just doesn't hold up as well. I wonder how I might go back and play some PS3 games because they weren't that long ago, but long enough that they're pretty old, and see how they feel, like the lighter ones and then the new ones. But the problem with
Yeah.
the PS3 games is most of them on 60 frames per second. Like the frame rates of those games, when you go back, you're just like, I don't want to play this.
Oh my god, yeah. It was really like they were trying to push it so hard. And I remember
Yeah.
like the if did you ever play the Darkness for PS3? Uh,
Oh,
the
I'm gonna be.
original one. There was a sequel, but there was an original one. But yeah, that one was really rough on the frame rate, and it was really like dark areas, and you had
Yes,
some
I
powers and
remember this
stuff.
game.
Yeah, there was a whole World War I section in there, which there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in that game. But that I remember, like the frame rate was really taking a beating, and even stuff like Grand Theft Auto when they released 4 uh, I played it on PS3, and it was like sometimes it was like 18 FPS or like 15 FPS.
Jesus
It
Christ.
was really suffering at times. Um, yeah, they hadn't really gotten there quite yet.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite there, and yeah, the frame rate for obviously the architecture did not help things. It definitely made things difficult, but yeah, the it just was in an era where 60 frames per second on high end games at any decent resolution, it just wasn't achievable. I mean, Call of Duty did it, pretty well. But again, the graphics was, I mean, they were good, but they weren't quite, the highest end. They weren't like Resistance, Fallen Man, or they definitely wasn't Killzone or Gears of War. So they definitely sacrificed on things there. And I'm happy that consoles have got to a point where 60 frames per second is a good standard now on pretty
Yeah,
much all games.
absolutely. That is so key. I mean, you don't even think about it that much when you're developing the games, but when you actually sit down and play games, it's such a drastic difference. Like even going back to PS1, no, not PS1, N64, GoldenEye, and I'm a notorious GoldenEye hater, but like GoldenEye had a shit frame rate. I don't know if you've played it lately, but it's like if you
It's
go
been a
back
while
to
since I played it.
that game, it's gonna floor you. It feels so bad to play because you have to try to aim, and the frame rate is fighting against you and stuff. Like if that game was just smooth, it would be so much better.
Yeah, it definitely is one of those things. The frame rate makes a huge difference on games, and I'm just happy that you don't have to be on PC only to get a nice, enjoyable frame rate on games now. The experience is definitely a lot better. And what's interesting is because of Steam Deck, like people are kind of seeing 40 frames per second, like 40 hertz, as a acceptable frame rate, and it honestly runs pretty well compared to 30 on the Steam Deck. I wonder if that might become more of a standard than you're having to do 60,
Yeah,
because instead of because you get games now where they have a quality mode and then like a performance mode, and sometimes they'll have a bit more like ray tracing and whatnot. But the quality is usually 30 frames and the performance is usually 60 frames. And now I wouldn't mind having an in between mode of 40 to 50, 40 to 45 frames, but I'm getting most of the quality features.
yeah, yeah. And key there is also that it's stable. That it doesn't dip
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. Yeah,
Oh yeah, like the stability of frame rate is the most important, because you can have 120 average in your on your game, but if there's dips to single digits now and again, then it doesn't matter. You need to have it consistent,
yeah,
within that range for it to run. And yes, some games just do it really well. Some developers do just do it, really, really well. I do know you need to go soon. Linus.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap up the podcast now. I want to, thank you for coming on. It's been a great discussion. We've definitely talked about, a lot of cool stuff with, games, your career. Actually, before we wrap up, one little quick question. I always like to ask this at the end of every podcast. Does money buy you happiness, and why?
Oh, that's such a good question. For me, it's never about the money really. But money does give you freedom to do what you need to do. So in terms like, man, I feel like I just want to give a straight answer instead of fucking around so much. No, I would have to go with no. Because I
No.
remember being like, after I studied, I was, I didn't have any money, and I was not in the industry, but I was making my own like games at home and stuff. And I remember just being happy, even though I didn't have the cash or didn't have anything. I was just like,
I know. I remember how it was. Same for me when I was after uni. The happiness of just making games.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, that's a simple pleasure for me. But it, as time goes on, it gets more complicated because you have responsibilities, you have bills and everything. And if you can if you can get some money to put that away for a while, that does give you some freedom, and freedom to do whatever it is you need to do, and that might give you happiness in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's important knowing what aspects of life. I feel like money can buy you happiness, but if you think it's 100% happiness in every aspect, then no. Like there's some things you're still gonna like. You like, let's say money can get you a gym membership or a gym at home or gym equipment, but unless you put the work in, you ain't gonna be happy
Yeah,
from the healthy, the healthy part of your life. So, you need to direct it at the right place. It's like having a car. You could buy a fast car. That doesn't necessarily going to make you much happier than just knowing you can have a decent car and that anything that goes wrong with it, you don't have to worry. You can take it to the garage, get the tires, get the brakes, get everything fixed when it needs to. So knowing that there's a point in every aspect of your life where money will take you so far, then after that, you'll get diminishing returns
yeah,
with things. I think that's where people really suffer, where they get a lot of money. They'll be like, okay, if I get a fast car, if I get this, I'll get this, all expensive stuff. Usually, they're going to be extra happy instead of realizing, instead of having a £500,000 car, just having a 50 grand one will get the job done. And if you really have an interest in cars, then you grab the more expensive one. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just understanding that you don't need to have the most expensive one, because I know people that are really rich, then you go to their house and they just got a normal TV. It's not because they can't afford it, it's because they're happy enough with that particular TV, and when it breaks, they will get a new one. But again, it's that point where it's does the job for them. When it breaks, they don't worry about it. They'll just go to Curry. They won't even shop around. Just go to Curry's, grab the latest one. What's the latest at that time, and they're okay. But then they'll have stuff that they'll focus on. So knowing that, whereas I feel like a lot of people feel like if they just throw money at every aspect of their life, it's just going to get happier and better. And it's just not the case. But like I said, I will wrap up because I know you have to go. So again, I want to thank you, Linus, for coming on. It was a great podcast, and I would love to have you on again soon.
oh, thank you, it was a lot of fun. I really appreciate all the old games talk as well, like all those old titles and stuff. It's fun to talk about those.
Oh yeah, it was a nice trip down, memory lane. I feel like we're gonna probably do a few more calls, just off podcast, just to talk some old classic, games. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk soon. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.